Hello, everyone. Welcome all. Back to more Tyrion Cuthbert, Attorney of the Arcane. So anyways, last time we got Tyrion's side of why he decided to basically become the prosecution for this case. Where is this going? Who knows? It actually happened? Well, I can kind of start to piece it all together. Kind of. I don't know. What happened? I don't know. So, yeah. Let's just play games. There's not really much I wanted to talk about because there's yeah, sure, I got a lot going on, but Your Honor, the defense, I mean the prosecution. I would like the right to cross-examine this witness. Bailiff, please arrest Mr. Cuthbert. I am holding him in contempt of court. Wait! You didn't really think this through, did you? Instead of following his orders, the bailiff walks over to the judge's podium and whispers something into his ear. What? I see. Very well then. What are they saying? It appears that Miss Steelman somehow predicted this would happen. In accordance with her wishes, Mr. Cuthbert may act as the prosecutor in her stead. What the hell? You can't be serious. I'm honestly just as surprised as you are, Miss Tomoria. But Miss Steelman apparently designated him as her stand-in. It's unorthodox, but it's also legal. You recall something strange Steelman asked you earlier today. So, what would you do if one of your clients was guilty? I suppose I would withdraw and tell them to find another lawyer. And if no one else would represent them? I don't know. It'd definitely be a hard choice for me. But I would never be able to represent them if I knew the truth. I just can't stand by and let a murderer escape justice. I see. Steelman, did she somehow know this would happen? Well, this isn't exactly how I expected the trial to go. Shortly after you barged into onto the prosecutor's table, Celeste awkwardly follows behind you. Curiously, she only did so after the bailiff didn't arrest you. I guess we're really doing this. We're a prosecution now. What's wrong? This feels weird. We're on the other side of the courtroom. I mean, this is where the prosecutor's supposed to stand. No, this feels way too jarring. Ruby, can we switch tables? What? Please ignore her. No, this is way too weird. Tyrion, get her to switch with us. Celeste, for the love of, I generally don't care. Grover can have the side if he wants it so badly. I'm only doing this to please Celeste. With that out of the way, let's resume to proceedings. Assuming we are all in our preferred spots. We are, Your Honor. As much as you hate to admit it, you are more comfortable here. Not that you wanted to encourage her. With all these interruptions, I think it's best to review the proceedings up until now. The prosecution proposed that Beatrice Frega's motive for murdering the whippet was to claim the father's inheritance. However, the defense brought forward a witness who testified that Beatrice was disinherited by her father 5 years ago. Am I correct, Miss Tomoria? Yes, you are, Your Honor. Very well. Considering the circumstances, I think it's best to have Lady Frega repeat her testimony. Bailiff, please escort Lady Frega into the stand once more. Miss Frega, could you please give your testimony to the court once more? Of course. One day, we all woke up and discovered that Beatrice has fled from our home. She left a note for us, and in it, she renounced her name and denounced my father. My father later called me and my sister into his study. He told us that he completely disowned Beatrice and removed any claims she had to the Frega estate. It's probably to threaten us in case we ever chose to go down the same path as she did. He didn't want to make an example out of her. This all happened 5 years ago. So your father assassinated Beatrice shortly after her departure. Yes, he did. As such, Beatrice would have no motive to murder her father. Any inheritance she would have received would be long gone by the night of the murder. Is that really true, though? That must have been a surprise for all of you. Did she tell anyone else about her plan? No, she didn't. She left us out of word to anyone. She should have spoken with us first. It appears to her she's sincere about what she says. From when I heard about your father, I don't find that surprising. It's clear to everyone involved that my client was not treated well by her father. That's what drove her to sacrifice her claim to the Frege estate. My father had many responsibilities. He had much to consider. And that's justified his treatment of your sister? Despite being her witness, Miss Tomia isn't really holding back against Miriam. That seems like a drastic reaction to her simply leaving her home. My father and sister already had many disagreements before this. He made it clear that he wouldn't tolerate her acts of insubordination. I imagine this was the last straw for him. Well, that sounds like in character for him. Would William Frege really do something so extreme? Regardless of his personal feelings, House Frege holds a lot of financial and political power. Would he really change his inheritance so haphazardly? That must have been difficult for you and Li Fei. It was. My father wanted everything to be his way, and anyone who didn't comply was punished. That's a terrible way to treat anyone, much less his own family. If this all happened so shortly after Beatrice fled, you must have been less than 13 years old at the time. I can't imagine how that must have been. But can we really trust your testimony if you were only a child at the time? I remember it vividly. My father's words. The look on Lifa's face when she realized Beatrice was gone. I remember the way the sun was shining through the window that morning. I remember the moment with clarity. My father made sure of that. It sounds like a painful memory for her, and she seems to falsely blame herself for what happened. It's best not to press her more than necessary. You felt it while you were watching from the gallery. A part of her testimony doesn't match with what you learned from your investigation. It must have been something Lisa told you. Oh! Sorry, Miriam. Nailed it. Miss Frege, it's clear that you're regretful for how your oldest sister was treated. That guilt must have eaten at you for all these years. Culprit, I know you don't have a good history with the witness. She said I had insulted it. Oh wait, no, that was someone else. Hey, we do have good history with her. She gave Celeste a bunch of lotus juice. And then that she drank within a month. But you shouldn't rub salt in her wounds. I was merely pointing out the witness's personal connection to the defendant, Mr. Tomoria. She's clearly regrets not standing up for her sister all those years ago. So perhaps she's trying to make up for that. By lying to protect her. Excuse me? I did nothing of the sort! Miss Frege, you testified that your father disinherited Beatrice 5 years ago. However, I have testimony from another witness who spoke with the victim on the night of the murder. After Beatrice's meeting with William Frege, he openly declared that he would be removing her from his will. He even entered his study to draft a new will to reflect that decision. So that raises the following question. Why would the victim need to declare that he was disinheriting the defendant? It doesn't make sense if he has already disinherited her 5 years ago. Is that so? Well, who did you hear this from? It's clear that they had no understanding of my father's estate. They had no understanding? Miriam, this testimony came directly from your sister, Lifa Vega. What? And she would have also been present during the alleged meeting 5 years ago. Well, she must have been mistaken then. Objection. Your Honor, how can we trust the second-hand testimony from a witness who isn't even here? Wouldn't it make more sense to have Lifa give her testimony directly? I must agree with you, Miss Tomia. Lifa Frega should be allowed to clear up this misunderstanding. She looks way too confident. What is she planning? You're not sure if it's intentional, but Miriam's testimony was false. Could she be lying to protect Beatrice? If so, is the Miss Tomia expecting Lifa to do the same? Bailiff, please escort Lifa Frega to the stand. Miss Frega, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that your father decided to disinherit Beatrice, and he decided this after their meeting on the night of the murder. Is this correct? Yes, I did say that. You see, Lifa, Cuthbert doubts the testimony given by your younger sister. He seems to think that she is committing perjury. What? I wouldn't go so far to say, witness, lying under oath is a serious crime. It would have harsh consequences, even for someone of your sister's status. No, she couldn't have. Wonderful. Are you saying that you collaborated your sister's testimony? Miss Tomia, you can't just intimidate the witness. I have no idea what you're talking about, Cuthbert. I'm just telling the witness that it may or may not happen, depends on what she does next. The choice is ultimately hers. So, Lifa, assuming Miriam wasn't lying under oath, could you please testify to the court to confirm what your sister has said? Yes, of course. You see, Miriam was quite young when my father called us into his study 5 years ago. She didn't understand what he was really doing. My father would often lie to us, and it was one of the many ways he kept us in line. The encounter that Miriam describes was just another one of his lies. Despite their disagreements, my father would never disinherit Beatrice without a good reason. He always held on to the possibility that she would become desperate enough to return home. The truth is that none of us knew what my father was planning for House Frega's future. See, Cuthbert, the truth is much more complicated. No one could really know what William Frega was planning for his estate. Lifa definitely is trying to cover for Miriam, and Miss Tomia is playing her like a fiddle. Luckily for you, she's not the only person who gave a statement to you. Wait, who else gave us a statement? I guess Jan gave us testimony. So you're saying that Miriam's testimony was based off a misunderstanding? Yes, my father was never direct with his actions. He always knew just what to say to plant the seeds of doubt into people's minds. I'm aware how it sounds, but he had much to consider outside of his family. The Fregas are one of the pillars of Wifengar, after all. Keeping the family aligned with our house's goals was one of his responsibilities. It's clear that she doesn't agree with what she's saying. Is she in denial? Or is she trying to keep the family name clean? So you really think that your father would lie about something so important? It was a great importance. That's why he had to lie. He wanted to make Miriam understand the consequences of disobeying him. What kind of father does that? But if he truly wanted to scare Miriam, why wouldn't he disinherit Beatrice? Despite their disagreements, my father would never disagree without good reason. Even after she re-announced her name and disannounced him, my father was always more paramedic than vengeful. I imagine that he expected her to fail on her own, and if she ever came back, she would be forced to rely on him. If he could make someone like Beatrice feel powerless, he'd get the rest of us to fall into line. Looking back, I suppose that's all we were to him, assets to be praised and traded. He heard a bit of resentment in her voice. I could blast him. I could blast him. If that were true, why would he tell you that he was disinherent in Beatrice? Perhaps it was a warning. I had my own share of disagreements with him after all. Even now, I have no way of knowing if he was telling me the truth or not. That would depend on Miss Tomias and Beatrice's discussion with Lord Freyga. And right now, you still have no idea what they even talked about. Did William Freyga really lie to them? From what we heard, I honestly wouldn't put it past him. He clearly had very little respect for his daughter. But there were other people that he did respect. Right. Was there anyone else that he would have told the truth to? That was a shot in the dark. Miss Freyga, did you really have no idea about House Freyga's future? No, I didn't. My father made sure of that. As I told you, he kept many secrets and wasn't above lying to manipulate us. But with Beatrice gone, you would have been the one to inherit your father's estate. Would you really be ignorant of your father's plans for House Freyga? Unfortunately for you, I don't think you'd be that careless. In fact, I have on good authority that you knew exactly how William's inheritance would be divided before that night. What? Life, according to Lloyd von Sanctus, you were arranged into a diplomatic marriage with his son. You expressed a resistance to this marriage. Am I correct? I have no reason to comment. I have no reason to comment on that matter. Cuthbert, the witness's personal matters are hardly any of our business. Yes, I must ask that you keep this discussion relevant to the case. Your Honor, Life's resistance to this marriage is exactly how I know that her testimony is false. She was extremely averse to this marriage, and because of that, she made sure to know every detail about how it would affect her and her house. And that includes how House Freyga would be inherited by her future husband. That raises the question, Life. If you already knew incorrect details of this marriage, why would your father tell you that he was disinheriting your sister? That statement only makes sense if Beatrice was already in his will beforehand. That would render Miriam's testimony false and constitute a motive for the defendant.
Objection.
You present a decent argument, Cuthbert, but your claims rely so on one assumption. And what assumption would that be, Miss Tomria? Even if he was lying, the victim declared that he was revoking Beatrice's inheritance. She must have already been named. She must have already been named in the will previously. Otherwise, there would have been no need for him to say that. It wouldn't make any sense otherwise. And that's where your assumption is. You're assuming that William Frege is acting logically. What are you talking about? It's clear that William Frege was extremely controlling of his daughters. By your own admission, Lifa Frege was resistant to the marriage arrangement by her father. In addition to that, Miriam Frege found herself wrapped in a conspiracy regarding the Nightgrave trial a few months ago. And finally, to make matters worse, Beatrice Frege, the prodigy child, finally returns home and makes a public appearance during the Lord's Ball. What are you trying to insinuate? In his eyes, William Frege's abilities to keep his daughters in line was clearly weakening. He must have gotten desperate and made a grand declaration in a feeble attempt to scare you, Li Fei. Even if that declaration was clearly inconsistent. But he wouldn't. Your ability to remember must have been muddled by the shock of your father's death. His statement couldn't possibly be true. If by some chance it were true, that would make you guilty of perjury. Or perhaps it was Miriam who was lying in her testimony. If your father's statement were true, the court might be inclined to investigate her for lying on the stand. Miss Tomria, are you threatening her? As I said before, I'm merely stating the facts. The witness is free to act as she sees fit. I'm just asking her to consider the potential consequences of what she says next. Damn it, she's pressuring Lisa to side with her. She's clearly conflicted, though. Isn't there anything you can do? You feel a sense of clarity when you look at her. Is the eye of Horus reacting to her stress? You wonder. I'm sorry. I need time to think. Please don't stare at me like that, Mr. Cuthbert. Wait a minute. No, wait! It's too late.
Naught can remain concealed.
Already using Empowered Eye. You did it. You activated Empowered Eye. There has to be something in her mind that you can use. And the state of her father's inheritance is the backbone of your case. Is there anything in her mind that you can definitely prove that what was on his will? Father, I know we had our differences, but I did love you, and I never wanted you to die. She seems generally surprised and regretful about his death. From your encounter earlier, you know that Beatrice had an accomplice, but you doubt that it was Li Fei. As much as I hate to admit it, this trial is a perfect opportunity to back out of the arranged marriage. Von Sanctus's holdings are weak by the day. I doubt he'll be able to put up much resistance. And once Beatrice inherits the estate, he might be able to rebuild our family. She's assuming that Beatrice will inherit Frege. That confidence must mean that she's certain what's in William's will. How do you prove that? Beatrice, after all these years, you finally returned. I can't believe that this is how things ended up. If only I was strong as you, I'd be able to endure this. You didn't get any leads from it. You should try something else. What? Why am I thinking about this? Then... Bells? Okay. need to make sure that I tell the truth without harming Miriam or Beatrice. Beatrice couldn't have possibly done this, and I'm sure Miriam also has her reasons. They couldn't rely on me back then, but they can now. You didn't get it. Maybe I should start presenting profiles. Why not? As much as I hate to admit it, this would... I need to make sure that I tell the truth. This man, I thought Aster hired him to protect Beatrice. Is he betraying us? Or is Beatrice actually... No, she can't be. I refuse to believe that she'd do something like this. You didn't get any leads from that. You should try something else. Tomia, I heard stories about her. Never expected Beatrice to hire someone like her. I wonder if she'll be at the will reading tomorrow. A will reading? She must be talking about William Frigga's will. Okay, of course. Understandable. Nothing from... You know, when in doubt, just send everything. Why would Miriam say those things? Am I misremembering what happened? No, I remember something like that. She must be trying to protect Beatrice. Miriam's testimony was a conscious lie. Beatrice's inheritance wasn't revoked until the night of the murder. I believe you had enough time for deliberation, Mr. Cuthbert. Are you able to prove the defendant's motive or not? I'm not, Your Honor. At least, not yet. It's clear that we won't get anywhere unless we can confirm the state of William Frigga as well. And we can easily confirm that tomorrow morning, when William Frigga's will is read to his family. How did you... I see. Once his will is read, it will become public record. I suppose I have no choice but to suspend this trial until such time that William Frigga's will is read.
Objection.
This is ludicrous. The case against my clients is completely outrageous. We have spent the entire court proceeding arguing if her murder motive even exists. The prosecution has very little evidence that physically implicates my clients. Ms. Tomia, you clearly don't believe in the defense. You don't believe that the defendant had anything to do with the murder. Of course I don't. She is completely innocent. Well, if your client didn't murder the victim, who did? Aha! We finally get to turn the tables! Woo! You sneaky little... Your Honor, with no other suspects, are you in a position to pass the verdict? No, I am not. Mr. Cuthbert is correct. The court does not have enough information to pass a verdict. Until the Inquisition has time to investigate these new developments, I will be suspending today's trial. We will resume the trial tomorrow afternoon. Court is adjourned. Hey, we bought some time for yeah, baby. Well, we should probably go pay her a visit. Well, that happened. Yeah, I know. I'm getting used to being a prosecutor too. Sorry, I kind of acted without thinking. But without everything that happened today, I can't believe that Sealwyn somehow knew that you would do that. Right, that is strange. Did she seriously predict what I do off of one conversation? Considering how things turned out, you suppose she was right on the mark. That was still a big leap of faith. Anyways, we have some time to ourselves. I would like to catch up on some sleep. Yeah, today's been exhausting for a lot of reasons. And your work has only started. You still have no idea who Beatrice's accomplice was. The will reading was just an opportunity to self-time. So the question remains, who really murdered William Frege? What the hell was that? Why is your son filling in for Arya? Listen, I have the situation under control. If that's true, I'd hate to see a situation you consider out of control. Eris, my father is not pleased with today's development. You promised that the verdict would be passed before William's will became public record. This has thrown quite a wrench in our plans. I understand. Cuthbert is just confused, but he's not a threat to us. We better hope you're right, Tomria, or else your poor ward might suffer the same fate as Prosecutor Steelwind. What? House Frege is in too important of a price for us to let go. Bring us results, Tomria, or else we will continue to take drastic measures. Yeah, let's do for progress here. And hopefully let's get some murder. For the first time since Laura's ball, you're finally able to get some sleep. You woke up this morning refreshed, but also a little anxious about the results of the will reading. You're right back at the Frege Manor to see Beatrice, Alifa, Miriam, and Von Sanctus all gathered, along with Miss Romeo, who is accompanying Beatrice as her attorney. You're not really sure what to say to her after everything you've done. It still feels too awkward to approach her to talk about it. Thank you all for coming here today. As William Frege's close associate, I must express my deepest condolences for your loss. I think I speak for all of Wingard when I say, enough! Just get on with it! Very well then. To get straight to the point, Lord Frege's will was magically sealed when it was given to me. He asked me, his executor, not to submit it to the courts till probate until after his death. Although I imagine none of us expected such a time to come so suddenly. Anyways, Lord Frege's assets included sole ownership of several banking houses throughout Ravengard, 10 million gold in various investments. 10 million? It's 10 million gold. You can't even begin to imagine what anyone could do with even a fraction of that wealth. And lastly, sole control and ownership of the Frege noble house. He actually takes out a lawn envelope and uses a rune sense to spell the magical seal on it. I, William Frege, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I hereby give despise and bequeath all my assets and property to both real and personal to Jaden Von Sanctus. Provided that he enters into a legal and binding engagement with my daughter, Life Frege, within 6 months of the date of my death. What? That's... What? William must have added an umption to prevent Von Sanctus from trying to steal his empire, but a legal and binding engagement is predicted on Lifa accepting it. But she clearly doesn't want to go through with it. So if she simply waited 6 months, Von Sanctus wouldn't have any claim to the estate. In the event of Jaden Von Sanctus does not enter into such an engagement within the specified time frame, my assets and property shall be disrupted as such. All House Frege will be divided equally among my children, as per laws of our kingdom. You were right. William Frege never disinherited Beatrice. This would make Miriam's testimony false. And since Beatrice would receive a portion of the William inheritance, she had a motive to commit the murder. You glance at Miriam. It's hard to read her expression, but something appears to be on her mind. Without a word, she walks out of the room, ignoring both Beatrice and Lifa. Lifa, on the other hand, seems to be in good spirits. Isn't this great, Beatrice? You can lead House Frege now, just as it should have been. Actually, about that, in light of recent events, I believe I should clarify one thing. As per Slayer rules, if Beatrice Frega is found guilty in the current court case, her inheritance will be revoked and divided between you and your sister. I see. I shouldn't feel so happy for myself. That all can't be, can it? Surely William did add a note of Lifa's obligation to marry my son. I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. Lifa Frega is an adult with a legal opinion. She is free to make whatever decision she wishes about who she legally marries. Now if you excuse me. Wait! You're not finished yet! Come back here! I'd love to catch up with you, Lifa, but I was only allowed out of my cell to attend the reading. You notice an Inquisition Knight outside the door. He seems to be watching Beatrice intently. But don't worry, I'm sure once this misunderstanding is resolved, we can talk all we want about our family's future. Of course! A group of knights leaves Beatrice out of the manor. Lifa follows after them, leaving you and Celeste alone with Miss Tomria. So I wanna go thank Steelwind for everything that she did for me yesterday. About what I did. Look, I'm not angry, Colbert. It was an extremely unforeseen situation, and Steelwind clearly put you on the spot. You felt pressured to do something, and you made a rash decision. But I'm sure the court will understand if you withdraw. Wait, what? Colbert, you're not a prosecutor. You know that, right? Did you become an attorney to defend prostituted mages? But Beatrice is guilty. I saw it! I'm not going to argue about this again. You're going to withdraw. This is not up for discussion. You always regarded and respected Miss Tomria, and you suppose that's always made you deeply scared of disappointing her. Perhaps she's right. She knows about more what's going on than you do. She's still your mentor. You want to believe that. You really do. But deep down, you know this is wrong. Miss Tomria may believe in Beatrice is innocent, but you can't just abandon this case and let her escape justice. Your hands are trembling. Why are you so scared right now? You know what you have to say, but the words won't leave your mouth. From behind you, you feel Celeste holding your trembling hands. It's warm and comforting. The same sensation you felt back then. Somehow you can feel it through her hands, as if she's silently telling you that you know what you have to do. Your anxiety fades and you take a deep breath. I'm not going to do that, Miss Tomria. What? You said it yourself. Our court system needs a defense attorney and a prosecutor of equal power to keep things fair. That's not what I'm not going to withdraw. If you believe in Beatrice's innocence, and you truly believe you're on the right side, then prove it by beating me. Fine, do what you want. But you're only going to make things harder for everyone. Tyrion? As soon as Miss Tomria steps out of the room, your body drops to the floor. Whatever bravery you felt before, it got replaced with an extreme amount of fatigue. Good Lord, that's the first time I've ever spoken to her like that. But you still did it. You stood your ground. Figuratively, I mean, right now you're kind of just sitting at the floor. Yeah, I need to take a moment. Can we go back to the ballroom? You return to the ballroom and take a moment to recover. You spot Commander White at the edge of the room, but you don't pay him much notice. We should probably pay him much notice. We are the prosecution at this point. It takes you a while before you're ready to stand. You okay? Yeah, I just need a moment. Anyways, the will reading brought us a few more hours to investigate the murder. We should take advantage of that new information we just learned. So, where should we start first? Alright, we are the prosecution! Right, you're the prosecutor now, so that technically would make you his boss for the time being. Go find Arya and tell her I'm doing good, okay? This is weird, right? Yeah, yeah, no. Yep. Awkwardness aside, I never really led a task force before. What would Steelwind normally do in this situation? Well, she'd normally have us investigate the areas of interest. Right. The context of the investigation tends to change after each round of court proceedings. Well, we're lacking a lot of physical evidence. Could you and the Inquisition search the gallery in Beatrice's room? Perhaps you can find evidence of how this sort of spell eating was stolen? Whatever you say, boss. God, this is so awkward! That covers the Inquisition, but what are we gonna do? It's clear that Lord Frega's inheritance plays a large role in this case. Even if it's not valid, we should look at the modified will that he was drafting. It might give us some insight about what he was really planning to do with his inheritance. Come on, where is it? As you enter Williamsburg's study, you spot a figure rumbling through the drawers of his desk. Why isn't it here? Where else would he put it? Miriam? But what? As soon as she noticed you, Miriam quickly closes the drawers and walks towards you. But you already saw what she was doing. She was definitely looking for something. This is a crime scene. What are you doing here, Miriam? As if any of your business. I'm the prosecutor of the case. Considering that I'm the prosecutor, it's very much my business. This feels so weird being the prosecutor. It feels so awkward! You give a side glance to the knights stationed outside the room. They should have stopped her from entering, or perhaps she used her status to intimidate them into letting her through. However, this could be a blessing in disguise. She was clearly looking for something in this room, and you have a feeling you know what it is. You appear to be looking for something, Miriam. What could be so important that you've got disturbed an active crime scene? It's none of your concern. I'm merely trying to find something that belongs to me. Really? Because I have a feeling that we might be looking for the same thing. You're looking for the will that your father was drafting, aren't you? Were you trying to destroy it before we could get to it? No! Of course not! I just needed to see it for myself. Oh, is she also suspicious of Beatrice? Why are you so determined to see the drafted will, Miss Frega? I just wanted to see what my father's final wishes were. But your father already had had a will filed previously? Wouldn't that be enough? You also suspect something, don't you? Of course not! Beatrice would never do something like this! Miss Frega, I never mentioned Beatrice. I know how things may look, but please understand. I'm just trying to get to the truth. I don't think your sister did this, but she may have been involved. She may have worked with someone else to orchestrate her father's death. Unlike Leafy, she didn't immediately deny it. This means she already had her own suspicions. Where's the will, Miriam? I need to see it. I don't know. I haven't been able to find it. You recall that she was frantically searching William's desk earlier. She's probably telling the truth. It should have been here, but I can't find it. He locked the door when he began drafting it. In addition to that, the Inquisition closed off the area after the body was discovered. That means someone took it during the lockdown. It probably was stolen by whoever murdered him, right? Yeah, that would make the most sense. Which means whoever did this wanted to nullify whatever was written on it. This is looking more and more like the motive behind William's inheritance. Anyways, it looks like we won't be able to find the will. But the fact is that it was taken must imply something. For now, we should follow our other leads. There's also the question of who committed the murder and how. Don't we already know the how? The murderer still distorted our spell eating and used it to break into the study.
That's
true, but think about how they would have needed to move around the manor. The murder took place on the first floor within William Frigga's study. But the gallery was on the second floor. They would have needed to go upstairs, steal the sword from the gallery, then use it to nullify the lock in the study. Not only that, they would have needed to go back upstairs and plant the sword in Beatrice's room. About that, if someone conspired with Beatrice to do this, why would they plant the sword in her room? That's a good point. Perhaps they had a falling out. Her partner may have tried to betray her by pinning the blame on her. But if that were true, why wouldn't you just sell them to make a deal with Steelwind? It would be because of the Slayer rule. Slayer rule? I remember the guy at the will mentioning that. What is that? It was a law passed by the crown centuries ago. According to the law, if someone's involved in another person's death, even accidentally, they are not allowed to inherit the deceased's property. So even if Beatrice wasn't directly responsible, she would lose her cut of the inheritance if she took a plea deal. More importantly, it doesn't sound like Miriam completely believes in Beatrice's innocence either. If that's true, what else can she tell you? Miriam, it almost sounds like you suspected Beatrice as well. Am I incorrect? I don't know what to think anymore. Wait, she was threatened? Miriam, did Beatrice threaten you in some way? What? Of course not! Your testimony yesterday was quite convenient for the defense. You almost got the whole case thrown out. And Lifa didn't seem to understand what was going on either. With the way she gave her testimony yesterday, it was almost like she was covering for you. Please, promise me that you won't tell anyone about this. I can't make any promises what comes up in court tomorrow. I won't tell anyone what happened. About an hour after the murder, I was approached by Ruby Tomria. She gave me a list of statements to give in my testimony. The statements were true, but she assured me that my status would protect me from any scrutiny. What? She had information that I had to try to keep a secret, and she threatened me to make it public unless I cooperated with her. No, she would never do that! I'm telling the truth. Please, you can't tell Tomria that I told you. She'll ruin me. Yeah, it shows that her fear is genuine. She's not lying. I've seen that woman do all kinds of shady shit in the cases I worked. Forgery, bribery, blackmail, you name it. I bet you are just the same, a successor for the devil of the defense attorneys. The rumors, they can't be true. You refuse to believe it. Hey, Tyrion, are you okay? Now's not the time to doubt yourself. There's too much at stake right now, and you have a job to do. We should check on Commander White. He might have found something. Okay. Just don't push yourself, okay? Yeah. You have plenty of time to think about this later. Just making sure, note. As you move around the manor, you peek into the sitting room to see if Von Sanctus is still here. You don't see him, but you spot another individual. Who is this fine hunk? He's calmly reading some books, but you can feel an menacing aura emitted from him. Who are you, sir? This aura. You must be the daft. If you think I wouldn't notice your presence. What? Did she notice you? You barely entered the room. Before you had a chance to respond, the man pulls out his great axe and rushes toward you. Oh, is this Lucio Steelwind? Is this Arya's dad? Is he gonna thank us for what we did for his daughter? He probably wouldn't. Wait, You bring up your arms back to block his bullet, but in hindsight, that probably wouldn't do much against that large. Protectius! You open your eyes. Celeste now standing between you and the axe-wielding maniac. You're not sure what happened, but it looks like she knocked him several feet backwards. Oh, it's you two. What the hell was that? You could have killed him! He shouldn't have snuck up on me like that. I almost cleaved him in two. Great, cool! We almost got killed! Tyrion didn't do anything wrong. What the hell? Who the hell do you think you are? I'm Lord... I knew it! I knew this was Lucio Steelwind. I'm Lucio Steelwind, Grand General of the Vanguard Military Forces. Love this man. I don't know much about this man. All I know is that his daughter is cool. We're cool with his daughter. So this is Prosecutor Steelwind's father. They do share the same intimidating stare. Although, he's not the most menacing person in the room right now. Celeste, it's fine. I'm not hurt. She looks more eerie than now, but she begrudgingly seizes her sword. Anyways, Lord Steelwind was one of the people with a motive to murder William Frege. As a fellow head of a pillar house, he might have had some information about William and his affairs. Celeste mad! So thanky! So thanky because we almost died. If looks could kill. McCoy. One might misinterpret that looks of yours as murderous intent. Ah, guess you do have some battle instincts after all. She's still inky. I honestly wasn't sure. Since you so obviously have a silver spoon stuck up your... Celeste! Such lack of respect and discipline. If you were one of my soldiers, I'd have you hang. If I was one of your soldiers, I'd hang myself. Celeste! God damn it, you're not helping our case here! We're talking to more... Okay! Let's all try to stay civil here! Lord Steelwind, you were here at the Lord's Ball when the murder occurred, am I correct? I was. Do you mind if I ask you some questions about what you saw that night? If that's okay with you, Grand General Steelwind. I suppose I must oblige, considering that my daughter has so surreptitiously thrusted her responsibilities onto you. Not my fault she got hurt, okay? I'm sorry about what happened to your daughter. I'm sure that you're very worried. It's her own fault for exerting herself despite her injuries. Even the bravest warriors know when to stay off the battlefield. How could you say that? Your daughter was trying to do the right thing. By prosecuting the heiress of the House Frege, she had very little evidence to sustain a conviction. If she wanted to strike a blow on a rival house, she should have been certain that her enemy would fall. But now, if Beatrice Frege is found innocent, any hopes of an alliance between House Frege and House Steelwind will completely annihilated. It's clear that he and the prosecutor have vastly different priorities. Where were you, sir, at the night of Lord Steelwind? I still loathe gatherings like that. They're a complete waste of time. I was in this room, but then I received word that Lord Frege's lost heiress had made an unexpected appearance. She was supposedly speaking with the Crown Prince, so I made my way to the ballroom. Did you speak with any of them at that point? No, I kept my distance and stayed near the King's Guard. I needed to make sure she wouldn't try me. Was this because you were weary of Beatrice Frege? Yes, I was. The Crown Prince has always been a bleeding heart, and the Freges are trained to sharpen their tongues from birth. I needed to make sure that you wouldn't try to interfere with his engagement. You were worried that she was going to try to take our Aster back. I was, but it's clear that it wasn't her intention. But you did overhear the conversation. What were they talking about? Their conversation was completely insane. It was all just small talk. Lady Frege spent most of her time playing with Prince Alec. Right. Aster's younger brother was there too. You know that Beatrice had some role in the murder, even if she wasn't directly responsible. Did she have some unknown goal by speaking with Aster and his brother? You went to the ballroom when you heard that Beatrice has returned. Was this before or after the lockdown? It was before the lockdown. That sounds about right. That means she was accounted for the stuff that was reported. And did you see her leave at any point? No, she spoke with the two princes for quite a while. She didn't even leave their side until she was arrested for Lord Freka's murder. What? That means she was accounted for the entire night. But she does have illusion magic under her. But her thoughts say that she was an accomplice in William's death. Was she there to distract Kingsguard? Thank you for answering our questions, Lord Steelwind. I am merely repaying my daughter's debt to you. He was surprisingly pretty cooperative. That doesn't lift any suspicions off of him just yet. You'll need to find more evidence if you want to know for sure. Anyways, we should probably move someone else, or her else. Let's go, Celeste. McCoy. What? Your spellcasting is undisciplined, but your battle stance and reflexes are commendable. You have my respect as a warrior. As if that means anything coming from you. What an undisciplined and defined brat. Hey, talking about my bodyguard like that. Alright. Keep that in that corner. Don't let it get away. Get away from him! As you enter Beatrice's room, you see the Inquisition cornering something near the back of the room. It's some sort of animal. A wolf, to be exact. Wait, is that? You recall spotting the same wolf on the night of the Lord's Ball. Has it been in the house since the murder? Intruders must protect the queen. What? Did you just read his thoughts? No, he speaks to animals! What can't the Eye of Horus do? Protect territory from enemies. He must see the Inquisition as intruders to his territory. Does that mean he sees this room as his home? He slowly starts to walk towards him. Wait, Tyrion! Stay back, kid! It's a wild animal! There's no telling what it'll do! You ignore them and continue to approach him. Don't worry, I'm not here to hurt you. Huh? This human. He can speak the language of dog? Wait, you can understand me? Why are you talking to it? You're speaking plain dog, of course. Tracker understands. What's going on here? See Horus allowing you to speak with him? Like I said, what can't the Eye of Horus do? You never really tried it before. Perhaps your powers aren't limited to humans. Anyways, this could be a good opportunity. You wonder what else he knows. Tracker, is that your name? How did you? Yes, Tracker is Tracker, but the name of Queen. But that's the name Queen gave to me. Tracker, occupation dog. Love it. Tracker gestures to Lifa when he mentions his queen. He calls you his queen. Do you know him, Lifa? Yes, but how? How are you talking to it? That's... You were so caught up in speaking with Tracker, you didn't realize how strange this Steve must look to everyone else. I'm a dog whisperer. Yeah, I'm a dog whisperer. You never mentioned that before. It never came up in any of our other portals. Do you honestly expect us to believe something like that? But Tracker said he can understand him. He told me himself. Wait, how do you know that? She's also a dog whisperer. So Lifa, how are you able to communicate with Tracker? I suppose there's no sense in hiding it anymore. Tracker is my familiar. Familiar? So that's the same magical bond Harold has with his monkey. You recall the familiar's bond that allows casters to telepathically speak with their familiar. That must be how she's speaking to him. You never mentioned him during questioning. It wasn't relevant to the investigation, and I've been keeping him a secret from my family. I suppose that makes sense. I thought William Freka would allow you to keep an animal in his home. Well, I don't appreciate you keeping this information from us, but it doesn't look like anyone got hurt. Aside from this dog, we haven't easily found anything new. Damn it! I didn't find any physical evidence of theft. It looks like you have run another dead end. Unless... Tracker, I saw you in the murder. What? Tracker! Ruh-roh. He's supposed to stay in his room. Wait, is that why you won't let servants enter it? I didn't want to keep him in Beatrice's room, but he was very insistent that he stayed here. Tracker likes the ambience. Right. Wait, if you live in this room, did you see who brought the sword of spell eating here? I already asked him about that. He didn't see anyone. He must have been taking a nap. Or it must have been when he saw me in the hallway. Either that or he was roaming outside, even though I told him to stay here. Damn it. Checker sees lots of other things, so Checker may see many new people that night. Right, he was roaming the manor during Lord's Ball. He must have seen a lot of new people. Wait, if he was walking around, he might have seen something that the Inquisition doesn't know about. Can you tell us what you saw in the night of the murder, Tracker? Tracker see rats. This may be more difficult than you thought. I need you to be more specific. Can you go in order? Tell me everyone you saw that night. Okay. Tracker was taking a nap in room, but then Tracker woke up from loud sounds outside. Tracker hears small things running in the walls. Running in the walls? Tracker called Queen, but she didn't answer, so Tracker decided to check out sound alone. Tracker follows sound outside. That's when Tracker smelled the bad smell. Bad smell? That's when Tracker smelled a flying rat. You smell the flying rat? Do you mean like a pigeon? Tracker could smell where rats was, so Tracker barked at him. Bark, 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 bark! I can't do dog noise well. Tracker must have scared Rat because he fell into the floor and dropped his stick. The rat had a stick? Tracker could see him now. Tracker did the one final bark to scare him off. The rats were scared and then went back into the walls. It went into the walls? That's when Tracker picked up stick and the rat dropped. Queen finally answered Tracker. She told him to go back to his room and hide. After message, Tracker brings stick back to room for inspection. Do you remember what time this encounter happened? What is time? Right. Animal wouldn't really have the concept of that. What did he say, Tyrion? Did he see anything? Well, he definitely saw something. Okay, let's try to take a moment to work through this. Tracker is an animal, but despite being able to speak with him, his words are very primitive. You should carefully examine each of his statements. The first thing he said, he saw small things running in the walls. The servants were complaining about rats running in the air, but they said he's taking care of it. It wasn't really fence upstairs, and it followed us here. I figured I had nowhere else to go, so I opened up and put a trap down. You must have heard the rats that Jan mentioned. They weren't actually running in the walls, they were running in the air vents. The next thing he did was call the Queen, but she didn't answer. The Queen he's referring is probably Life, but Life wasn't with him at the time. He must have called out to her telepathically. it was nullified by the anti-magic field. Leafa didn't respond because she never got Tracker's message. Telepathic capabilities granted by familiar bond were disabled by the anti-magic field, which means that this encounter happened during the lockdown. So that covers his first two statements, but you're not really sure what to make of the flying rat he saw. Tracker, why did you refer to this rat as flying? Because rats don't usually jump and fly. Yes, I got that. Is it possible that what you saw wasn't really a rat? Rats are rats. They are small things that run and hide. So rats is a general term for him. He uses it to refer to small animals that are acting suspiciously. Anyways, with everything you know now, his last statement doesn't make sense. Tracker, about that stick you found. Where did you put it after you came back to this room? Tracker hid stick in safe place, under the... And the stick, did it look like a sword that my friend is carrying? What? Hey, your friend stole my other stick. Wait, your other stick? Yeah, Tracker found it while he was hiding from the Metal Man. Metal Man? Is he referring to the Kingsguard? He must have left the room when they were searching for the spell of spell eating. Wait, are you the one who stole Celeste's sword? Tracker! Did Tracker do bad? It's as I suspected. Tracker was the one who brought the sword of spell eating here. What? I have no idea how or why, but the sword of spell eating was lying in the hallway somewhere. Tracker found it and brought it back to Beatrice's room. His room. That can't be. So the person who framed Beatrice for the theft was... Tracker did it bad. If it weren't for Tracker, the Inquisition would have never honed in on Beatrice at all. But why would the sword of spell eating be lying in a random hallway? Leafa, do you mind if I borrow Tracker for a little bit? It's okay, Queen. He spelled good. Tracker trusts him. Thanks, I guess. Okay, but only if you allow me to accompany you. You know about Miriam's position, but how does Leafa feel about you prosecuting Beatrice? It's possible she might be trying to sabotage the investigation if you let her to accompany you. But as Tracker's owner, you don't really have a choice. You nod to Leafa, but you also send a subtle gesture to Celeste to keep an eye on her. She silently nods and slowly follows behind her. Alright, Tracker. Can you take us to the hallway where you found the rats? Sure thing, King. It looks like you received a promotion. Haha, take that! We outrank you now, Aster! We outranked the goddamn prince! Fuck yeah! Kidding, no, we still love Aster. You follow Tracker to lead you to the location where he found the spell eating. Surprisingly, it's fairly close to Beatrice's room. He apparently didn't travel very far before he met those rats he mentioned. As you continue to walk to your destination, Tracker suddenly becomes extremely tense. Tracker, what's wrong? Enemy! Oh. Before you even have a chance to react, Tracker steps between you and Iris, then begins to angrily bark at her. That's probably not how the Tracker sounds. Oh dear. Tracker, stop that! Leafa tries to calm Tracker down, but he is undetermined. He continues to bark at Eris, and looks like it's taking all of Leafa's strength to hold him back. I'm terribly sorry. He's usually not like this. It is to be expected. I'm not sure why, but animals always seem... have always disliked me. What is Eris doing here? You recall seeing her at the barracks, too. She said that her father is as friends with Beatrice, but is she involved in this case somehow? Anyways, you came here for a purpose. You should examine this hallway and see if you can find any clues. The crystals are generated by an anti-magic field during the lockdown. However, the sword of spell eating would make its wielders immune to the fields. There's an air vent over here. It appears to be going from the ceiling to the ground floor. Is this where those rats escaped to, Tracker? That's where Jumping Rat went. I thought you said it was a flying rat. Tracker sees that too. Okay, it would probably be better just to move on. Anyways, where did the rats come from? Rat come out of other wall. Do you mean the vent on the opposite side? Yes, Tracker saw flying rats escape that way. What was this rat doing here in the first place?
Repario Arcanum.
What? What do you see? The vents have traces of illusion magic inside them. What? The traces also go deep inside these vents. It's the same for the vents on the other side too. Why would there be traces of illusion magic inside the vents? What spell could have possibly left those traces? As I told you many months ago, illusion spells tend to do one of two things. They either create freestanding illusions, or they either disguise an existing creature. I thought someone created a small freestanding illusion in the vent, so a disguised creature must have been inside the vents at some point. But these vents are tiny! No one would have fit inside them! Tracker could see them now. Tracker did one final bork to scare him off. The rest were scared and went back into the walls. But a rat would be able to fit inside these vents. Well, yeah, I guess that would be true. But that would mean the rats had an illusion spell active on them at the time. Not only that, he also said the queen finally answered him, and this happened after he picked up a stick. But that shouldn't have been possible because of all the anti-magic field. Tracker saw this rat during the lockdown. They would have been inside the anti-magic field created by the lockdown. There can only be one way that rat could have had an illusion spell active on it. Wait, you can't mean that rat was holding the sword of spell eating. What? But how is that possible? A rat wouldn't have the strength or hands to carry the sword. Tracker's vocabulary is primitive and limited. He uses the word rat to describe small creatures that hide and act suspiciously. But even if that was an actual rat, it couldn't have been a human, right? You're right. It would have been a small animal. A small animal with the strength and dexterity to traverse a small air vent while holding a sword. Sorry, but I really have to ask. Is that a monkey riding on your back? Yes, this is my familiar, Eugene. No, are you serious? We know that Harold has a motive to kill William Frege. He was planning to defund the Heralds in the Hall of History. They had an argument that night, and that was when William Frege decided that he was going to defund the Heralds Museum. He must have struck a deal with Beatrice, and with Beatrice's portion of the House of Frege, she would have easily kept his museum funded. He could have faked the robbery and sent his familiar to murder William. I can't believe this. And there was something else that Tracker said. Tracker could smell where Rat was, so Tracker borked at him. Tracker must have scared Rat because he fell onto the floor and dropped his stick. And Rat had a stick. Tracker, you said that you had the smell to see where this rat was. And where did he drop the stick you were finally able to see him? Does this mean you couldn't visibly see him before he fell down? Yeah, Tracker couldn't see Rat with eyes, so Tracker used nose to see it. The monkey was invisible? No one would have noticed a small invisible animal. In addition to that, he moves through the air vents. Eugene would have nearly been undetectable that night. Beatrice is a master of illusion magic, so it's possible that she cast invisibility on Eugene. Clap both hands together. That's what she says when she... And there's the position of this air vent. We're in the hallway just north of Beatrice's bedroom, and this air vent connects us to the ground floor. If we align the two maps together, this vent must lead to the investigation, to the storage room. Right, the air vent is curved upwards. This must be where it leads. And according to Jan, that air vent led directly to William's study. If it would have been the perfect route to enter William's study and leave undetected. But wouldn't he need to nullify the locks to enter that room? Why would he need to use the sword as spell heating at all? Because of familiar bond. They can telepathically communicate with each other. Harold probably needed Eugene to hold the sword so he could tell him exactly where to go. The sword's magic affects anyone magically connected to the wielder, and familiar bonds connect them magically. It makes sense now. Harold could have easily faked the robbery to take suspicion off of him. It's even possible he was lying about how the display glass was shattered. And I know Lord Harrelson for many years. I just can't believe that he'd be involved in this. She may have known Harold for a long time, but she never read his thoughts. His thoughts were very hostile and rude. Despite his kind expression, he was very good at hiding what he truly feeling. And Beatrice, there's no way she'd participate in a plan like this. Look, Leaf, I know you don't want to suspect your sister, but it's not that. Beatrice would never trust anyone to do enough to work together like this. But she's completely blind. She wouldn't have much of a choice. And so, she's not the type of person to trust her as her accomplice to stay quiet. She'd find a way to carry out a plan herself, and she would only employ someone else if she had full control of them. Leaf probably knows her better than you do, but you doubt that working alone would be possible with her condition, and you can't think of any other way she'd be involved in this. Anyways, we're finished here, aren't we? Yes, thank you for lending Chakra to us, Leaf. I only wanted to help you find out what really happened. Don't make me regret trusting you, Mr. Cuthbert. If you're truly on the side of justice, then you won't. Good. Now if you excuse me. So that's it, right? We finally know who really committed the murders then. And you can get Harold to confess on the stand. He might reveal Beatrice's involvement as well. If he does that, you might be able to convince her and Miss Tomia to take a plea deal. Although, knowing Miss Tomia, that will be easier said than done. Anyways, this is definitely the lead we've been looking for. Is it really enough? We still don't have any physical evidence. It will have to do for now. We're running out of time. We'll just have to call Harold on the stand to testify about what he did that night. If I can push him far enough, I might be able to catch him lying. But you doubt you'll be that easy. He has a good poker face. Just how much will you be able to hide his true thoughts? I already gave my statement to the Inquisition. Is my testimony really necessary? Sorry, old-timer, but my orders came straight from the prosecutor. Sup, that's me. I'm the prosecutor. We're going to need you on the stand today. I understand. I'll do what I can to help. Yeah. And we'll continue. Court is now resumed for the trial of Beatrice Frege. Let us review yesterday's proceedings. There was much debate over William Frege's inheritance. More specifically, it was unknown whether the defendant had any claims to her father's inheritance. This detail was crucial in determining whether the defendant even had a motive to commit the murder. Luckily, the victim's will was supposedly read earlier today, and as it is now part of public record. What were the results of the will reading, Mr. Cuthbert? William Frege was planning to leave all of his assets to Drayden von Sanctus, his hopeful son-in-law. However, this retracted on the condition that Drayden married the victim's daughter, Leafe. It's clear that Miss Leafe will never follow through on this engagement. If the engagement is not made in 6 months, William Frege's assets would be divided among his 3 daughters. I see. There was no mention of the defendant's disinheritance. Correct, Your Honor. This means that the defendant did have something to gain from the victim's death. Your Honor, despite the confusion around the victim's inheritance, there is still very little physical evidence that implicates my client. May I remind you that Miriam Frege was not telling the truth in yesterday's proceedings. That itself is extremely suspect. And William Frege was clearly not above manipulating and lying. You can't prove that she knowingly gave false testimony. I'll admit that I can't prove that. I'll also admit that there's a lack of apparent physical evidence to subordinate our case, which is why the prosecution would like to call Harold Harrelson to the stand. Lord Harrelson? The sword of spell eating clearly plays a larger role in the murder, and its theft is one of the few pieces of physical evidence in this case. As the gallery's curator, I believe he can further elaborate on how the sword was stolen that night. More specifically, you can find out about what he did on the night of the murder. I see. Well, the court will definitely benefit from his insight. Bailiff, please escort Lord Harrelson to the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation with the court. Now, of course, my name is Harold Harrelson. I am the owner and curator of the Harrison Hall of Histories, located in Homicere. That is quite the alternate occupation. Harold, could you please testify to the court about how you discovered that the sword of spell eating was stolen? If that helps. I was keeping an eye on my gallery's exhibit when I realized that my familiar hadn't returned. I called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. I became worried, so I went around the manor to search for him. About an hour later, I returned to the gallery and discovered that the exhibit that had held the sword of spell eating was completely destroyed. An artifact was missing, so I reported the crimes to the night at the ball, and they activated the discreet lockdown. Luckily, we found the sword and my familiar later that night. So you went to search for your monkey, and that's why you didn't witness the theft? Yes, that stuff was probably waiting for me to leave. He must have wanted to commit the crime without anyone seeing them. Or his testimony is completely full of it. His search for Eugene must have been a cover that he was using to hide his actions that night. How do you prove that? Are you referring to Eugene? Eugene Harrelson, Your Honor. It's the name of the witness is familiar. Yes, Eugene is a spry. Had to be a red herring? We're talking about a monkey, so no, unfortunately, it cannot be a red herring because we are talking about a monkey right now. A herring is a fish. Honestly, to be fair, if I had a familiar, it probably would be a fish. Curse is foiled again! Oh no! No. Lore-wise, I mean, I don't know. I might consider having like a fish as a familiar. I don't know. I'll think about that idea. Is this a spry orangutan monkey? He helps me with my day today. I see. Anyways, you said that he hadn't returned. Does this mean he left you earlier in the night? Yes, he always likes to explore large buildings like Frego Manor. But he usually doesn't leave for that long. Hat. I called him telepathically, but he didn't respond. Does he typically ignore you like that? Sometimes. He's a young boy, so he likes to have his privacy. Or there was an anti-magic field going around. I tried not to pry, but I was weary that would happen if a noble or knight... I know, right? Like, honestly, all the music in this game is a banger. Not gonna lie, I listen to it a lot at work. I don't know why my coworkers put up with my music. No one has ever told me to change music. So, I mean, I'll just keep playing what I want. I mean, I have like the whole game's soundtrack on Spotify, so that's kind of where I'm at. He usually knows not to bother people, but you never know what might happen. You left the gallery room? Yes, as I said, I was worried that something had happened to Eugene. Where did you go during your search? Exactly. they've asked me about it. I was just like, oh yeah, it's good from this game, you know. It's like a great game. Like I'm not even done with the game almost. Because this was like, I was like halfway through episode 3 when I started listening to it and everything, and there was just like, huh. I was like, yeah, I'm not even finished with this game. But I was like, I don't care. Great music. Eugene usually knows to stay out of people's bedrooms. So I went downstairs and searched from there. I checked out the bathroom, sitting room, and coat room. Then I finally checked the kitchen and pantry. He might have gone there to steal some snacks. But you didn't find him in any of those sorts of places? I definitely really like Attack of Opportunity, and so I think I would have to go with that one as my favorite. But honestly, everything. Can I say everything? Can I just say everything's my favorite? Is that an acceptable answer? Oh, yes, that one is great too. But like I said, can I just say everything? Okay, everything is an acceptable answer. I'll take it, okay? I'll take the answer as acceptable. No, I didn't. If I recall correctly, the glass is completely shattered. Is this despite the presence of several obligation spells that protect it? Yes. It would have taken an extremely powerful spell to break that. Like that. As you saw, the glass display was shattered into shards. Unless Harold had a way to dispel that magic, a powerful mage must have destroyed it. Perhaps Harold had Beatrice shattered the glass before she went into the ballroom. The sword of spell eating makes the wielder immune to magical effects. What use would the lockdown have been? Honestly, not much. The wielder would have had to be immune to the anti-magic fields and the spells that prevented people from leaving. But at that point, the King's Guard just wanted to activate it for good measure. His statement just now is missing some details. But what details will you ask him to elaborate on? How did you eventually find Eugene that night? After an hour of silence, he finally responded to my telepathic messages. He met up with me in the gallery before we went to search for the sword. So that would have been after the stuff was reported. Yes. He would have had to pick up Eugene after he murdered Lord Frega. This must be the alibi they're using to account for the time that no one could have seen Eugene. Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony, witness. Harold. No! You are witness right now, Harold. Yes, of course, Harold. He sounds like he went around the manor to look for Eugene. Do you think he's telling the truth? Maybe, but his so-called search for Eugene gave him a good excuse not to be seen by anyone. It's a decent alibi, if not without its flaws. You'll just need to poke some holes in that alibi. My statement just now is missing some details. How did you eventually find the sword of spell eating? The King's Guard and I carefully checked each room in the manor. After about an hour, we finally found the artifact under the bed in the defendant's room. That must have been where Tracker hid his sticks that he finds. Now that you think about it, he's probably the one who stole Celeste's sword in the first place. We already knew that part! Anyways, this detail could be extremely important. Please add it to your testimony, witness. Harold. Yes, of course, Harold. I should probably know the King's Guard found the soul of in this room. I think we need the other statement. man the murder, Tracker smelled something strange. I love Tracker so much. I would give him I would give him the best pets. He deserves all the best pets. And the night of the murder, Tracker smelled something strange and a fell descent in the hallway north of Beatrice's bedroom. He saw a flying rat come out of the nose or air vent. And that scared away. When this rat supposedly dropped the sword of spell eating, Tracker took the sword and brought it back to Beatrice's room. I should have spun. It's worth a shot.
Objection!
It was worth a shot. Finally responded to my telepathic message. I felt. Wait a second.
Objection!
Okay, that was also worth a shot. I thought maybe because it was like anti-magic field, and it's like how were you able to hear him in the anti-magic field? I know, right? Worth a shot.
Objection!
Ah! Harold, you found Eugene before you went to search for the sword of spell eating. This would mean that this happened while the lockdown was still active. Am I correct? Yeah, as much as I worry about that artifact, Eugene's safety was far more important. That's the thing, Harold. You said that after hours of silence, you finally received a telepathic message back from Eugene. What? So that leaves one question. How did you communicate with Eugene telepathically if you were both within an anti-magic field? What? Harold, in response to this theft, the Kingstar activated the lockdown system to prevent anyone from leaving. That same lockdown system would have placed an anti-magic field over every inch of that manor. That field should have suppressed the telepathic abilities given to you by familiar bond. You wouldn't have the ability to speak with Eugene at all. Mr. Colbert, are you accusing the witness of lying in his testimony? Oh, I'm gonna do much more than that, Your Honor. Please, Colbert, it's blowing the entire thing out of proportion. An anti-magic field is a resource-intensive spell. You can't assume that they managed to cover every inch of that manor. We're talking about the House Frega here. Especially the areas that would only be accessible to small animals. Miss Tomiel, let's assume that Eugene managed to reach some sort of blind spot in the lockdown system. The magical telepathy granted by familiar bond connects two people. Even if Eugene wasn't affected by the anti-magic field, Harold would be. That's very true. So how did I hear him that night? There's only one answer that makes sense, Harold. Eugene had the spell of sword eating. Or you had it. You did hear Eugene telepathically, because Eugene was wielding the sword of spell eating. What? I'm sorry, Mr. Colbert. Are you saying that the sword of spell eating was stolen by the witness's pet monkey? I am, Your Honor. It's the only way that the witness's testimony makes sense. It doesn't have rebuttal. You should push this until you still have a chance. No, the Harold Harrelson, you were the one who stole the sword of spell eating, weren't you? And what reason would I have to steal something that already belongs to me? It was to take suspicion off of you, because you were the one who had William Braga killed. You staged a robbery and used the sword of spell eating to make Eugene invincible. Then you sent him through the manor as a ventilation system. Also, you could have him murder William Braga in his study. Well done, Cuthbert. I suppose you can't just stop yourself from pursuing a lying witness. It's what I do best, Miss Tomoria. Of course. Witness, do you have anything to say in your defense? It's quite obvious, but I completely refute the prosecution's allegation. He's misguided, but he's just doing his job. You were expecting his thoughts to be hostile like before. Then do you also refute your statements about Eugene telepathically speaking with you? I know better to lie on the stand to try to save myself. I can't explain how it happened, but I stand behind my testimony. Eugene did telepathically contact me during the lockdown. How did he do it? Wait, so he doesn't know how the telepathic communication happened? A caster forms a magical bond. Unbreakable bond with the target. It was the target creature, connecting them to the caster's magic. While this bond exists, the caster can telepathically communicate with the target over any distance. The caster can also choose to see through the target's eyes as long as they concentrate. And last, the caster can cast spells from the location of the target's creatures instead of their own location. Once the bond is formed, neither of the caster nor target. The caster nor the target can form a bond with any other creature. This bond can only be broken in death. Okay. Perhaps he overlooked it when he was planning the murder with Beatrice. And what's your position, Cuthbert? That witness sent a monkey to murder William Braga? It may sound ridiculous, but it's the only thing that makes sense. Or do you have any evidence to refute that, Miss Tomoria? No, I fully and will wholeheartedly agree with you, Cuthbert. She agrees because then it wouldn't go to Beatrice. Because then Beatrice... Wait. Tyrion? Mr. Cuthbert, did you forget that you were prosecuting Beatrice Braga? We forgot we were the prosecution! Classic! Your Honor, even as a prosecutor, it's clear that Cuthbert can't just stop himself from finding the true culprit. Well, wait! I also meant to say that the defendant conspired with the witness to commit the crime! Oh, really? And do you have any proof of this conspiracy to commit the murder? Of course you don't. But let's assume that you did have evidence to prove your statement. If that was really a plot formed by my client and the witness, what would my client even contribute to this plan? Her high levels of magic abilities. From what you said, the plot was completely carried out by Lord Harrelson and his familiar. Well, the glass! You would needed a powerful mage like the defendant to break the sword to play case in the stage of the robbery. So her contribution in the murder was breaking some glass. Can you prove that my client shattered the display case? And can you prove that she did that knowing that it somehow led to her father's death? You might have gotten a little too eager to prove Carol's guilt. The physical evidence against my client was almost non-existent in the first place. Meanwhile, it seems that the prosecution has just brought forward physical evidence that implicates Lord Harrelson. Physical evidence that is supported by his own testimony. There has to be some explanation for this. Cuthbert, didn't you ask me something yesterday? If my client didn't kill the victim, then who did? I suppose then I should thank you for finding the answer. Damn it! All you did was make it more difficult to prove your case. The Herald has to be involved with this. You weren't wrong about that. Only Eugene would be small enough to traverse the air vents. So isn't there anything else you can use? With the threat of commit, Harold must be stressed. It's gotten you out of tight spots before. Maybe you can find the evidence in this in mind. You can use every trick you have, Cuthbert. It won't help you. Ignore her. Calm yourself and focus the eye of Horus on him. He has to find something, anything that might tie the murder to Beatrice.
Naught can remain concealed.
Okay. I can't believe that one of my artifacts was used to commit a murder. It's completely disrespectful to the culture and history behind it. What? Speaking as if he truly had no hand in this. But that can't be true, can it? At least the years of validity were untouched. It's one of the few artifacts left that's imbued with the Scale Lord's power. The arms, bands of intellects are still missing, but I inspected it closely before the Lord's ball. They were still there when I moved them to Frega Manor. Someone must have stolen it during the ball. Right, we never did find what happened to the armbands. Could there seriously have been a second left there? Not one, but 2 artifacts were stolen during the Lord's ball. I never expected anyone to completely bypass my security like this. What? He's speaking as if he had... That can't be true, can it? It's truly a shame that Beatrice was driven to flee from her own family. If only I introduced myself to her, then perhaps we could have found a solution together. He doesn't know Beatrice? But how? She planned the murder with him. Or so we say. Unless... he didn't actually commit the murder. Eugene, just what were you doing that night? Did you really wield the sword? If only for a brief moment? Wait, you should have known exactly where Eugene was that night. Why wouldn't his thoughts say that? Wait, what's going on? He's speaking as if you really had no hand in this. You guard yourself from the eye of Horus, but you can't lie to it. And if it's true, were you wrong about Harold's involvement? Is he really innocent? See anything, Cuthbert? Your Honor, it's clear that the prosecution has nothing left to argue. There's very little evidence to implicate my client, and there's far more likely suspects in front of us right now. Yes, I must agree, Miss Tomia. At least, very least, you have no reason to prolong this trial any longer. Eugene drinks from Hay and Arnold. Wait, Beatrice couldn't have personally done this. Discounting the fact that she was completely blind, she was with the 2 princes for most of the night. So who actually killed William Frega in his study? Think about this. The reason you suspected Harold in the first place was because of what Tracker said. Tracker's vocabulary is very primitive and limited. He uses the word rat to describe small creatures that hide and act suspiciously. But even if it was an actual rat, it could have still been a human, right? You're right. It would have been a small animal. Oh God, please tell me we're not going to implicate him. He's 7! A small animal with the strength and the dexterity to traverse a small air vent while holding a sword. Trackers definitely saw some kind of animal. Was it someone else's familiar? No, it had been Eugene. Tracker... No, you can't see for sure why Eugene was there. It's unlikely Harold even knew about it. Just trying that new thing. Eugene was acting of his own free will. That's the explanation that makes most sense. But how and why? Harold's the only person that is magically connected to Eugene. And even if Beatrice somehow got Eugene to follow her orders, she wouldn't have been able to direct his actions telepathically. Beatrice couldn't use any other conjuration spell to contact him either. She was also in the anti-magic field when she was asked it. That if Eugene was the one who murdered William Frege, was he acting independently? No, that can't be possible. How could Eugene carry out this plan independently? This plan requires knowledge of the House Frege Manor's ventilation system. It also involves murdering William during the lockdown and destroying his will. Eugene might have been a smart monkey, but a normal monkey wouldn't know how to identify and destroy William's will. Even if Beatrice had somehow trained him to do all this beforehand. No, it couldn't be. I discovered the armbands of intellect have been stolen as well. And unlike the spell of sword eating, we still haven't found the armbands. You look at the glass where the armbands used to be. The thief didn't shatter the glass. Exactly. Moreover, the armbands weren't actually replaced by a very well-made replica. The magical locks on the case can't be disabled. How are they normally disabled? They can be turned on and off using a spoken password. How many people know this password? Only myself. I personally oversee the transport of these items when they are moved. Only Harold knows the password, someone could have overheard him saying it. Someone that constantly is looking over his shoulder. You made some ridiculous statements in the past, but there's no way the judge will even entertain this theory. He has to be smart about this. Your Honor, I think there's one more witness that can clear up the discrepancy once and for all. I believe he can prove the prosecution's case to the court. Really? I frankly find that hard to believe. Please trust me, Your Honor. There is an element to this we all aren't seeing. It's the one that no one will believe. What do you have planned now? Very well, I'll give you one last chance, Mr. Cuthbert. But know that your net witness fails to unveil any information, I won't hesitate to end this trial. I understand, Your Honor. So I'm gonna need you to bear with me for a moment. Why? Your Honor, the defense calls Eugene Harrelson to the stand! We're just gonna let all animals prosecute, aren't we? This makes testimony, aren't we? Never mind, I retract my earlier statement. I will be passing my verdict. But wait, just bear with me for a moment. Mr. Cuthbert, I should find you in contempt for even suggesting this. What? Do you honestly think that I'm gonna allow a monkey to give testimony in my courtroom? Yeah, it sounds pretty out there, even for us. I'd like to remind the court of the nature of Harold's bond with Eugene. Eugene is a familiar. That means Harold Harrelson can't speak with him telepathically. But this is absolutely. Show me the law that says an animal cannot give testimony, Your Honor! It may be unprecedented, but it's not against the law! Very well. Your Honor, you can't be serious right now. Are you actually going to go along with this? Oh, Miss Tomia, I'm looking for any possible reason not to entertain this. Mr. Cuthbert has a point. There are no laws against this proposal. So I have no choice but to oblige his frankly insane actions for now. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's not as if this will reveal anything. I can't believe I'm saying this, but bailiff, please escort Lord Harrelson's monkey to the stand. Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court. I could do without sarcasm, Miss Tomia. Eugene is Eugene! Eugene Monkey. Bailiff, make sure the stenographer gets Harrelson's translations. Ugh. You can see the armband on him right now. He must be his normal intelligence now. Although, how would he even wear them? Perhaps he held them in his hands. They don't require physical contact after all. Eugene, did you steal from the galleries and that is a murder? Okay. Eugene never steal from Harold! Eugene respects Harold. Then you'll have no problem testifying where you were during the Lord's ball. I can't believe you let me commit me to pervert this. I can't believe we're going through with this. Okay. Eugene explore house. Eugene look for a new place to play. Eugene also looks for a spider. Spider yum yum. Okay. You think Eugene steal armband of intellect? Oh, okay. Eugene never steal from Harold. Harold friend. Okay. Harold. Eugene always Harold friend. Ape stronger together. Wow, you did it, Cuthbert. You blew this case wide open. I could really do without the sarcasm, Miss Tomia! Is this really gonna help us? Look, trust me on this. I trust you? That sentence sounded like it turned into a question at the end. But Harold is an associate of House Frege. Surely you visited Frege's manors in the night before that night. Manor constantly changes, William always doing revisations. There's always new discovery to be made. You suppose that makes sense. William certainly had the gold for it. Anyways, what else did you do that night, Eugene? Eugenie also look for spiders. Spider yum yum. Do you enjoy eating spiders? Spiders good, rich in nutrients. Why he angry? Objection is thrown at tail. But how is that relevant to our case? Mr. Pod Guy, I'm gonna have to see how that is relevant to our case. Objection sustained. Wait, really? Some cultures in the Eastern Kingdom eat roasted crickets. I tried them. They're actually not that bad if you prepare them correctly. I don't think it would ever be that adventurous. I agree. Can we please stay on topic? I wasn't accusing you of anything, Eugene. Perhaps you accidentally unlocked the case and took them with thinking they were some sort of toy. This could all be an innocent, honest mistake. Eugene is not dumb. Eugene knows how important artifacts are to Harold. Eugene never take from him. You might not have knowingly done it, but perhaps you took one of the artifacts by accident. Eugene never do that. Then how do you explain your brief contact with the sword eating? Harold couldn't telepathically contact you unless you were wielding it. Eugene doesn't understand questioning. Right, you wouldn't understand how the sword works without its heightened intellect. Unless... Do you consider yourself close to Harold? I would guess so. They literally have a magical connection with each other. Right, I suppose the bond between a mage and his familiar would require a lot of trust. Harold saved Eugene from bad men many years ago. Eugene would never betray. So you're a rescue. Bad man lock up Eugene in cage. You tell Eugene you tell people to throw peanuts with Eugene. Harold take Eugene away from that prison. Lock up bad man. He seems generally care for Harold. That's why he did this? He clearly feels indebted to him. That might be his motive. Tyrion. I know, it looks bad. But I swear there's more to this than meets the eye. If you say so. There has to be something in the statement. He would be wearing the armbands of it. The armbands the night of the murder, which shot would reveal that. Think about how Harker spoke. Is there any differences in the way Eugene is speaking right now?
Objection!
Nailed it. I knew it. I just like the press. Wait a minute. Eugene, I asked you before if you stole anything from Harold's gallery. Eugene, no. Eugene would never steal from Harold. Cuthbert, don't waste our time by having him repeat that statement. That's the thing, Miss Tomria. It's not the same statement he made in his testimony. I asked the witness if he stole an artifact from the gallery. I never mentioned the armbands of intellect. What are you talking about now? The witness lacks understanding the differences between the artifacts. It was clearly just a simple mistake. It's not just the fact that he named the wrong It's not just the fact that he named the wrong artifact, Miss Tomria. It's the fact that he used its actual name. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean, Cuthbert. Your Honor, animals can't speak the same way that humans do. Even with a telepathic establishment, their vocabulary is extremely limited. Right, Tracker called the sort of spell eating a stick before. It was hard to understand what he really meant. Exactly. That raises the question, how did Eugene know that they were called the armbands of our intellect? Wait, how did he know? The armbands were stolen during the Lord's Burial and were replaced with a well-made replica. Where are the armbands of intellect right now? It can't be. Is he really? The armbands were designed to be worn by humans, so Eugene couldn't wear them on his arms. So where would he wear them? On his head. He initially thought he carried them in his hands, but there's a far simpler explanation. Eugene, do you still maintain that you didn't steal the armbands of intellect? Eugene told you already. Eugene, you never steal from Harold. Then I suppose you won't mind taking off your hat. Are you serious right now? You don't think he's wearing them right now, do you? It's the only thing that makes sense. The armbands were taken on the night of the murder, and they are still missing. If Eugene didn't seal the armbands that night, he would have never had the opportunity to return them. He had no choice but to continue wearing them until the investigation was over. I know, right? Kind of specious. Wow. This is absolutely ridiculous. You're spinning a fairy tale. Do you honestly expect us to believe that a monkey increases its intellect beyond its human limits? If I am wrong, the witness can easily refute my theory by removing his hat. Well, what's it going to be, Eugene? You see him fully break character, and he slowly but silently lifts his hat. No, you can't be serious. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen. Our hero. I mean, come on. It's a little bit something to prosecutors, right? Hey, he's a prosecutor right now, so we can make jokes about him being a prosecutor right now, alright? Everyone can see it plainly. He's wearing the armbands like a crown around his tiny head. From out of his hat, you see him pulling out something else. Well done, Mr. Cuthbert. I shouldn't have underestimated you. Are you serious? This is probably a blessing in disguise. I don't think I could bear debasing myself any longer. We were specious, weren't we? Oh wait, no, he is wearing the armbands.
Objection.
Objection, Your Honor. On what grounds, Miss Tomria? On what grounds? Everything about this situation is objectionable. It's downright absurd. Is he seriously Beatrice's accomplice? But Miss Toria, we can't deny what's clearly in front of us. I was not ready for today. How is he even talking right now? Scholars believe that humans and apes evolved from common ancestors. Perhaps all apes can speak the common language under the right circumstances. Evolved, please. I observed your society. I think calling you humanity evolved is quite generous. This can't be happening. Well, are you all done gawking at me like a bunch of simpletons? Simpletons? Wait a minute! It's quite difficult to separate myths from actual historical accounts. Right, I remember encountering a similar problem at the Imperial Academy. Ah, you must be quite dedicated to your study. They let this simpleton into the Imperial Academy. Rude, but you suppose it can't be helped. We weren't reading Harold's thoughts earlier. We were reading Eugene's. Every insult that you seen from Harold, they weren't Harold's thoughts at all. They were Eugene's thoughts. He's been wearing the armband since you first met. But I still don't understand. Why would he even take the armbands in the first place? I'll admit the Lord's ball was one of many occasions. The first time I touched them was due to sheer chance. You put them on by accident? My unawakened self was enamored by a glittering machine. I merely wanted to touch them. But when I first held them in my hands, I experienced a sense of clarity that I never felt before. I was afraid what I would experience, so I left them alone. But as soon as I returned to my primitive lifestyle, I couldn't stop thinking about what I felt that day. You were hooked. I wouldn't quite phrase it like that, but I suppose you're not wrong. I already knew the password to Harold's vault, so I would come in from time to time and indulge in the armband's power. But the more time I spent with my awakened intellect, the more I craved its power when I had to put them away. And that's when you made the replica? Oh, well, while no one was watching, I decided to plan to discreetly take the armbands. Harold would eventually discover that they were stolen, but he would have concluded that a noble from the Lord's Ball took them because of the pressure he was receiving from the crown. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I've never expected things to reach this point. I didn't expect someone to steal the sword of spell eating as well, and I certainly didn't expect the murder to happen that night. So you still maintain that you're innocent? Of course I do. I stole the armbands, but I did not murder William Frege, nor did I take the sword of spell eating. Allow me to elaborate. I'll admit that I took the armbands and replaced them with the replica, but I was not the crook who stole the sword of spell eating. The stuff was completely different from one another. The display case from the sword was completely shattered. I spotted the sword when I was exploring the manor. I was lying in the middle of the hallway. I wonder why such an important artifact would be lying there, so I took a closer look to inspect it. That's when I heard Harold call out to me telepathically. The sword must have protected me and Harold from the anti-magic field. I wanted to take the sword and return it, but a wild dog chased me away from the scene. He has a point. He didn't need to shatter the display case of the sword. Yeah, he already knew the passwords. The tracker said that Eugene was the one who dropped the sword. Furthermore, he escaped into the air vent that led into William's study. His actions that night were definitely not as innocent as his testimony implies. He must have lied somewhere. You stole the armbands by using Harold's spoken password, am I correct? Yes, I'm sitting on his shoulders most of the time. He obviously never suspected what I do, but it was a simpler matter of listening to him when he transported the artifacts to Frege Manor. And when I can assume you need the passwords for the other place as well. I do, and I can easily demonstrate that. He doubts that he'd lie about that when you can easily check. Even so, you already lied about not stealing the armband. Why should we believe you now? The answer to that lies in physical evidence. The stuff was completely different from one another. The display case of the sword was completely shattered. How do we know you didn't shatter the glass to cover your tracks? Harold's password nullifies the locks, but they don't nullify the magic that protects the glass. Harold told you himself, didn't he? Only a powerful mage could have shattered the reinforced glass. But as a familiar, magic can be cast through you. Only Harold can cast magic through me. I cannot cast any spells by myself. Even if I could, Harold's spell Comprimonium doesn't have a spell that's powerful enough for that. His logic is sound, but what if he's saying it's true? Who shattered the glass? Anyways, Tyrion is exploring the matter. It was lying in the middle of a hallway. But that location was near the Fergus bedroom. Don't tell me what do you take me for? I know what a bedroom looks like, and I even entered one. I never enter one uninvited. Then why were you there in the first place? I was coming back from the rooftop garden. I suddenly felt something interfering with the armband's magic. The anti-magic fields. Yes, I was worried that something had happened, so I made my way back to the gallery to meet up with Harold. I see. Could you add this to your testimony? Very well. And that's when you made contact with it. Yes, I was quite surprised too. At the time, the magic of the armbands was being nullified. But when I picked up the sword, my intelligence finally returned. That's how I knew I was holding the sword spell eating. Was this the first time he tried to contact you this night? No, he had telepathically messaged me earlier that night. But I was also absorbed in my explanation that I ignored him. He was absorbed into his exploration. What would really cause him to ignore a call from Harold? I wanted to take the sword and return it, but a wild dog chased me from the scene. Didn't you have enough time to grab the sword? You were holding it after all. I'm not proud to admit it, but my survival instincts took over. At that point, I was more concerned about the escape from that wild animal. You suppose that makes sense. Tracker is several times larger than him. He'd have every reason to be afraid. His story makes sense. There's no way he could have shattered the glass. I suppose so. But what Tracker saw that night, he was definitely through the hallway, which makes him have to lie somewhere in his testimony. Worth a shot, right?
Objection!
It was worth a shot. It was right. Eugene, I'm well aware of this, but the best way to lie is to hide a false detail within many truths. And what are you trying to insinuate, Mr. Colbert? You said that you were heading from the terrace to the gallery. Did you take any detours? Of course not. With the armbands nullified, my intelligence was slowly fading. I wanted to return to Harold as soon as possible. Witness, I'd like you to take a look at this floor map of the Frega Manor. This location is where that wild dog found this sword of spell eating. So tell me, Eugene, how did you spot the sword of spell eating when it was hidden in the hallway north of Beatrice's room? Why are you nitpicking such an insignificant statement? You probably just got distracted and went down the wrong hallway. Miss told me Eugene came from the rooftop garden, and he was adamant he went directly to the gallery to reunite with Harold. Even if his intellect was mollified, his intent when reunited with his worried companion. He definitely took the direct route, but if he did, he'd never been able to see that into the hallway. I see your point, Mr. Cuthbert, but what does this mean? It means that the witness lied about where he was before he discovered the sword of spell eating. He wasn't coming from the rooftop gardening. Oh god, where's that? He came from the air vent that's in that specific hallway. So why were you in that hallway, Eugene? You lied in your testimony. Also, why would we do cross-examination? We're the prosecution after all. Was it because you wanted to hide what you were really doing that night? Admit it, Eugene. You snuck to the air vent to avoid detection. Then you used the air vent in that hallway to break into William's study. After that, you murdered him using his letter opener, didn't you? That's not what I went in there to do. But, no, I didn't mean to. Order in the court. Witness, is this true? Did you break into William Frega's study during the lockdown? Yes, I did enter his study, but not for the reason you say. William Frega was already dead when I got there. What? What did you just say? It's true. Do you honestly expect us to believe a story like that? How could someone else have killed the victim before you got there? Tracker took the sword of spell eating, and you were the only intellect creature that could walk through the air vents. I understand how unbelievable and suspicious this things. Why do you think I lied in the first place? But it's the truth, Mr. Cuthbert. You have to believe me. You don't see any contradicting thoughts through the eye, but that hardly absolves him from guilt. Could you really be telling the truth? That's true. It only brings you back to one question you've been asking since this all began. Who murdered William Frega? Who really did this? Okay, Eugene, let's assume that you're telling the truth. Do you actually believe me? Not really. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You're still my only suspect for this. But I know better than anyone about jumping to conclusions. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now. I see. However, if you want to absolve yourself, you need to tell me about what you saw that night. No ands, if, or buts. There might be something, anything that might point to who really did this. Very well. I'll tell you what I saw. Although, I doubt you'll believe me. I discreetly made my way into the hallway through another air vent. I exited the air vent in that hallway and tried to leap to the other side. I'm not sure what my well-lit intelligence or my desperation, but I collided with something that I didn't see. I fell onto the ground and found the sword of spell eating lying next to me. I wanted to retrieve the sword, but that wild dog forced me to retreat. After that, I continued to make my way to the study, and I found William Frega. He was dead on the floor, lying in a pool of blood. And as I was blessed by the Lord Scale himself, I found the will that he was drafting, so I destroyed it. Okay, that part I believe. Frankly, Mr. Hilton, I find that story very difficult to believe. I assume as much, but you know what they say. Why is the defense not doing cross-examinations? Truth is stranger than fiction. Isn't it more likely that you murdered the victim? You're clearly trying to cover up what you did by saying that he was already dead. Honestly, I don't know what to think. Is he really telling the truth? But why were you in there in the first place? It all began when William Ferrigan got into an argument with Harold. That crew wanted to defund the prestigious Harrelson Hall of History. I knew a man like William would probably have many secrets. So I decided to plan to break into his study and find something that I could use to blackmail him. As you know, there are small air vents in the hallway that are connected to William's study to the ground floor. I wasn't aware that William was planning to stay in his study all night. So I thought I could look through his documents without anyone seeing me. You suppose that does make sense, but he is really telling the truth? What happened when you tried to leave to the other air vent, Eugene? I'm not sure if it was my... I thought monkeys were extremely dexterous. Are you just clumsy? I have impeccable dexterity. I do. Where's Boo? It sounds like you've struck a nerve there. I must have been muddled by losing the armband's magic. I fell to the ground and found the sword of spell eating lying next to me. How do you know it was the spell of sword eating? When I held it in my hands, I felt that my intelligence returned. But I also heard Harold calling out to me telepathically. He was clearly growing worried, so I knew I needed to move quickly. I wanted to retrieve the sword, but that wild dog forced me to retreat after that, continuing... Did this wild dog have a white coat of fur? He did. Are you acquainted with him? Something like that. Well, next time you see him, tell him I don't appreciate being called a rat. I am a proud orangutan. Calm down, you're a monkey. You can understand him? I have picked up a little of the canine language throughout my life. I'm also fluent in squirrel and pigeon. I can also speak owl, but I admit it's barely conversational. As much as you want to test the validity of those claims, they're not relevant to the case. We can probably speak very well pigeon, squirrel, pigeon, and owl. What happened when you entered the study? And then I found William Ferrigan, who was dead lying in full blood. That seems awfully convenient that he was murdered before you arrived. I know it may seem, but I'm telling the truth. And do you have any explanations how the assailant broke into the study without the sword? I unfortunately do not. Please, it's obvious your testimony doesn't match up with the evidence. Whoever did this entered through the event, or they used the sword to nullify the lock. And your own testimony states that the sword was abandoned in that hallway. It doesn't match up with what you thought happened, but it clearly contradicts the evidence you have. Anyways, what did you do when you discovered the body? I knew it was only a matter of time before someone discovered the body, so I quickly searched for the room for something I could use. So you were the one who took the will. I've been trying to find it. What did it say? I was pressed for time, so I didn't read the entire document. But I found it in order to execute you to defund the Harrelson Hall of History. Since he went out of his way to specify that one, it's a sign that the current colony, I concluded the former will did not have this addendum. So you saved Harold Museum by making sure it never got submitted for probate. Anyways, do you have the will with you? My apologies, I crumpled it up into a ball and ate it. Then I left the room before my intelligence was completely gone. Ugh. Well, I mean, technically it could still be here. Inside the stomach. You really were hoping you'd see William follow through with this threat and disinheriting Beatrice. It's hard to believe, but you can't see any direct contradictions. Should you press him more? But what if he's telling the truth? What if Eugene did do this? Your next course of action is clear, although it still wouldn't explain how Beatrice fits into this. You recall something that Tracker said to you. Tracker, you said that you had to smell to see where the rat was. When it dropped his stick, you were finally able to see him. Does this mean you couldn't visibly see him? You couldn't visibly see him before he fell down? Yeah, Tracker couldn't see the rat with his eyes, so Tracker used his nose to see it. Eugene was invisible. Eugene, when you were carrying out your plan, did you turn yourself invisible somehow? No, I hardly had the means to. Even if I had somehow convinced Harold to cast a spell on me, he doesn't know how to cast invisibility. Very few mages do. You know, one mage who does. She's sitting in the prosecution bench, which is technically supposed to be where I'm supposed to be, but, you know, Celeste felt weird. You know, so we had to. Right, you recall Eris saying something the same night during the night in their graveyard trial. Only a master of illusion magic would do that. That's how you first thought Beatrice was involved. But if Eugene is truly innocent, did she turn someone else invisible? But if that's true, you're back to where you started again. No, thanks for this. Eugene's testimony fills in the blanks that has been missing. I fell into the ground and found the sword of spell eating lying next to me. How did you know it was the spell of sword eating? When I held it in my hand, I felt my intelligence return. But I also heard Harold calling out to me telepathically. He was clearly growing worried, so I knew I needed to move quickly. I wanted to retrieve the sword, but that wild dog forced me to retreat. After that, I continued to make my way to the study. And what happens when you cross-reference that with Tracker's testimony? That's when Tracker smells flying rats. Tracker could smell where a rat was, so Tracker borked at him. Tracker must have scared Rat because he fell onto the floor and dropped his stick. I took the sword spell eating in the hallway. The thief dropped the sword in the hallway, but how does that make sense? They had the sword like they were originally thought? No, that hallway was close to the galley. There's plenty of better places to hide the sword. If it weren't for Tracker taking it, it would have been found even sooner. The thief must have accidentally dropped the sword there. There can only mean one thing. The thief was also sneaking through the air vent. That's the only reason why they would be there. But that would imply that the thief was as small as Eugene. Could it have been another familiar? If so, why didn't Eugene notice it? Wait. I'm not sure if it was my warning intelligence or desperation, but I collided with something that I didn't see. He collided with something he didn't see. In other words, it was something that wasn't visible to him. And as a master of illusion magic, Beatrice is one of the few people at the ball that casts invisibility. Beatrice would never trust anyone enough to work together like this. But she's completely blind. She wouldn't have much of a choice. Even so, she's not the type of person to trust her accomplice to stay quiet. She did find a way to carry out her plan herself. She'd only employ someone else's help if she had full control of them. Have you been approaching the situation incorrectly this entire time? Through the eye, you knew that Beatrice was involved somehow, but you assumed that she was one part of a larger plot. Breaking the glass and casting invisibility. These were elements that you knew she was involved with, but never really fit together. Not unless she was the one pulling the strings the entire time. There's only one way she couldn't control the entire time. She has a familiar! What did Beatrice use to commit the murder? A couple of memories flood your minds. A familiar is a creature that a mage has formed with a magical contract with. With that contract, our souls are bonded. I can speak with him telepathically. I can even see through his eyes and cast spells through him if I wanted to. Really? I never knew spells like that existed. It's quite rare. Very few mages take time to learn how to cast it. Hi, I'm Tyrion Cuthbert. I'm Miss Tomia's ward. You extend your hand out to shake her hand. She's an aristocrat to your heir, so you hope you're not being too informal. Instead of taking your hand, she claps her hands together and takes a deep breath. What? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. It's a bit of habit of mine. Nevertheless, she finally shakes your hand. I have heard much about you, Mr. Cuthbert. My name is Beatrice. You didn't know that she was blind back then, so you barely even noticed it. How did she know that you were holding... but how did she know that you were holding out your hand? Well, do you have another question for me? If you're wrong about this, Beatrice will surely be acquitted. And after that, the Inquisition will turn their attention to Harold and Eugene. But there's only one way to know for sure. Your Honor, the prosecution has no further questions for the current witness. He is dismissed. What? I see. You have something else planned, don't you? Yeah, and I actually need your help. Really? You tell her about your plan. Really? I feel like you're making some big assumptions there. Wouldn't the Inquisition check for something like that? I know, it's the best play we have. You remember what Steelwind said yesterday? But the moment the guards saw the body, one of them could cast Detect Magic. With that spell, they would have seen any invisible person hiding in this room. Wait, you actually you can use Detect Magic like that? Of course, it's a standard procedure. Like all spells, invisibility leaves traces of magic on the person that it's cast on. Some mages can use Detect Magic as a way to see through invisibility. If everything goes the way I think it will, you'll be able to confirm its location. Once you do that, you just need to reveal it to everybody. Alright, I'll follow your lead then. So, Mr. Cuthbert, how do we proceed? Your previous witness had brought... Hello there, Legolas. Hello, it has been a while. I've been well. Your previous witness has brought more revelations than I could ever guess. However, you still haven't given us a substantial explanation of how the murder occurred or actually did it. I understand that, Your Honor, but I will all make sense after I call my next witness. Another witness? I understand your hesitance, Your Honor, but everything that we have learned throughout these trials is finally coming together. And with this final witness, it'll all tie in a perfect knot. Your Honor, the prosecution called Beatrice Frege to the stand. Why not? Call the actual defendant. Oh, by the way, we are the prosecution right now. Seriously, Cuthbert, you went all to that trouble just to end up calling my client to the stand. You and your client have the right to refuse, Miss Romria. But I wonder what will reflect on your client's character. It doesn't really matter. She's already standing here with Miss Romria. You can carry out your plan regardless of what she decides to do, but it will have to do much more to impact if you can bait her into lying on the stand. My client says that she's willing to testify. However, we would like to propose a short recess. With these new developments, I'm sure you can understand that we have much to discuss. I see no reason why not to grant the defense's request. Is this really okay? If we give them time to prep, they might realize what we're doing. I know, but I don't think we have anything to worry about. You've been building a psychological profile of Beatrice since the case began. It's hard to read her expressions and emotions, even with the higher Horus. She keeps herself guarded and keeps her true intentions unknown. She is powerful, more powerful than her father ever cared to admit. Despite this, he tried to control her and put her inside a cage. But Beatrice Frege would never live in a cage. She wanted the freedom and control, but she would do whatever it took to get it. You're sure the accident that blinded her didn't help things. When everything was well said and done, she abandoned everything: her wealth, her status, her family. She could have waited, but she would grit her teeth until it was her turn to leave House Frege. If she was willing, she could have even secretly pushed her father past the gates of death herself. But she couldn't bear to live like that, even temporarily. You have no idea why this is how she chose to do that. Perhaps it had something to do with their meeting. But you do know one thing. Beatrice Frege would never put herself in a position of vulnerability. If you endanger her freedom, she will make sure that she can see who she's up against. In the interest of giving the defense time to deliberate, we're taking an extended recess. Court is adjourned. As you're exiting the courtroom, you send Celeste back to do some reconnaissance. It should be similar to when she scanned Valentina during the night guard trial earlier. Tyrion? Celeste? Were you able to see it? Yeah, it's definitely there, and it sits on her shoulder most of the time. She keeps it close to her. That's good to know. It looks kind of weird, though. I've never used Detect Magic like this before. Well, you doubt that someone like her would choose a conventional animal, especially for something like this. Cuthbert, Miss Tomria, there's something I need to show you. Preferably alone. Celeste gives you a concerned look, but you nod to show her it's okay. She moves to sit on the bench where she can keep an eye on Beatrice. Okay, lead the way. I think this is where we're gonna end it. We're gonna end it for tonight. And we're gonna continue this tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow. I got a lot of stuff to do tomorrow. So, we are gonna continue this on Thursday. Maybe, I don't know. Things that I've been getting pretty busy as of late. But anyways, thank you all for joining tonight. I'm, at this point, just trying to find someone to raid. Real quickly. We're gonna read Yen. I know I just recently raided him, but it's like the only target I got right now, so I'll see you guys soon. Bye.